Good afternoon, everybody. Eddie Webb. We are here at the New Media Lab at Mesa Community College. And today, we have a very, very special guest from our Office of Multicultural and ESL Services, soon to be Dr. Luis Ellis, the academic advisor. He is also the co-advisor for the Black Student Union and Male Empowerment Network, acronym MEN. Dr. soon-to-be Ellis grew up in Panama City in Panama. He is a distinguished veteran, 6 years of active duty, and it is our pleasure to welcome Luis to our podcast. Welcome.
Thank you, Eddie.
How you doing, man?
I'm doing fine.
So I did not know you were a veteran. Tell me a little bit about your military experience.
Yeah, I did 6 years in the Army. Basic training was in Fort Jackson, South Carolina, and then I went on to do AIT, which is Advanced Individual Training in Fort Lee, Virginia. Upon completing that training, I got stationed in Fort Polk, Louisiana. Spent there 3 years in Fort Polk. While I was at Fort Polk, I got deployed to Bosnia. I was in Bosnia doing September 11th. So that was a whole different experience to witness what was taking place back stateside while I was overseas. I remember I was out doing running an errand for the department, for the company. And when I got back, they're like, "Hey, have you seen the news? Have you heard the news? A plane crashed into one of the towers." And I've been to New York and I've seen the towers, and I was just like, wow. In my mind, I'm thinking the pilot just lost control of the plane. And lo and behold, right after I said that, the second plane, I got to see that live. So we went on like full alert that day. And just to give you a little bit of perspective, I was in Sarajevo, the capital of Bosnia, and I was like in what we considered a NATO base. So we had different military from different countries at that particular base. So I was considered lucky because we had access to liquor, whereas some of the other Army guys that were like up in Tuzla, they didn't have access to that. They would come down to our base so they could get some entertainment. So it was just a surreal experience. You know, we went on full alert that day. We actually had to get our weapons out of the armory because we didn't know what was going to take place. Ironically, by the end of the week, I believe September 11th happened like on a Tuesday. By Saturday, they had loosened up some of the restrictions. We continued to have access to alcohol. And that was because the other military from the other countries, they were like, nah, we cannot have this to be a dry post. We need our liquor. It's just part of their culture. I was assigned to a MI unit, and because of the time differences, sometimes I would go back to my office at night so I could call my then ex-wife or my son to check up on them. And I remember there was a group of German soldiers that were assigned to our unit, and they would be out there working on the reports, drinking beer. It was just natural.
Watch your hands. But when you start doing that,
Yeah, okay.
Fun. But I can see your enthusiasm.
Yeah. I don't want to give out the image that I'm some, like I drink a whole lot. But it was just something that I felt myself, I was fortunate because most guys, when they deploy certain areas, like in Bosnia, some of those bases were dry bases.
Yeah.
They didn't have liquor, so they would come down to our base. I mean, there's other things I can share with you. Yeah. I don't know you want to put this on this podcast.
No, it just in your bio, it talks a lot about in your military service that you had a lot of leadership training.
Yeah.
So my next question was, how did you take the military leadership experience that you had and transition that into public service?
Well, in the military, the one thing I learned in the military is that you lead by example. I've been out of the military now, 15 years? And I'm still trying to adjust to civilian life. And I say that in for instance, my MOS was 92 Alpha, which is Automated Logistics Specialist, right? And I worked in a warehouse, I could work in a motor pool, and I had a variety of things that I did in my MOS. But that did not preclude me from doing stuff that were not part of my job. For instance, if my vehicle that I'm assigned to had a flat tire, well, I'm not a mechanic, but I still have to be able to get that tire up and running. I may need assistance from the mechanic. Now, there's certain things that, yes, I'm not able to do on the vehicle because I'm not the subject matter expert. But if they need your help, you help out. You come into the civilian world, everybody, we operate in silos. That's not my job description, so I'm not gonna
Yeah.
go above and beyond to help, or even try to inquire to see how I can help you. And that's something that I see that we, unfortunately, that we do with our students. I'm not saying everyone, but I've seen that. I've worked at 2 colleges within our district. I've worked at the district office, and those are some of the things that I've seen. I'm not saying that everyone is like that, but it's one of the things that us one of the biggest adjustments for me is trying to adapt to that way of doing things. I genuinely like to help people.
Yeah.
I don't know all the answers, but I'll try to help. I don't want to have students bouncing around from left to right.
Yeah.
So that's the one thing I've learned is just, you lead by example. So I try to lead. I'm not going to ask somebody to do something that I myself am not willing to do.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting because most people would think it'd be it's the opposite when you think about military culture that, you only know your job, that, you don't know all the jobs, right?
Right.
Because there's national security issues, but the culture of the military is to do your job and rank, and you're a supervisor or superior, and you follow orders, and you don't question authority. I mean, one of the very first things you do when you join the military is raise your right hand, give up your constitutional rights as an individual,
Yeah.
right? You are now property of the
Of the
United
United
States.
States.
So it's interesting to say that you noticed coming from that culture this sense of, and this topic has been here since the day I got here,
Mm-hmm.
21 years ago. There were faculty already talking about the dysfunction of silos. Bureaucracy is built on these silos, and people don't work across the lines with each other. And that culture, I think, is really, really interesting to talk about because if we start, and I think we've already started down this road
Mm-hmm.
in terms of salary and promotion and resources, where you sort of have to prove what you're doing through, like, for faculty it's a par system, right? You're accountable through par. I don't know what staff have to do if they're on any kind of probation, or is it
I know initially when I first started 15 years ago, you do have a probational period, but then after that,
your
you
whoever
board,
you're
you board approve, and then
yeah
as long as you doing what you're supposed to do, I haven't met anyone yet that has been fired from
yeah
Maricopa.
yeah well,
I
that's
mean,
good. We like to hear that.
I joke with people. It seems like not that there's not the tools are there. I know it's tedious. You
Yeah.
got to document if you have like an insubordinate employee
Yeah.
or they're not doing what they're supposed to do. But there's steps that you have to follow. I think what happens is it's so tedious that most
Yeah.
managers don't want to go through that.
Sure.
You literally have to kill somebody for you to lose your job.
Well, I think that I really like. I hope that we get to explore that, not just even today, but next time, or different ways of exploring that conversation. I think it would make a great roundtable discussion, maybe even a retreat type scenario where people can talk about this. Because the problem with limited resources and only having, in this school, we have one person that has all of the resources, one VP, he has them all,
Right.
and he's not even full time. And so you have to get to him through whatever bureaucratic channels we have, right? And so what happens, I think, is that it's two things. I mean, it's a double-edged sword. So if you're going to have people competing for resources based on performance, that on one hand could be a good thing, but on the other hand, this is where the silos happen, right? Because you want credit for your work, right? And if you're sharing it, how does that happen? Because I like to work out of abundance, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's how we've built this new media lab. We just put our head down and just started working. We just did it.
Right.
And it's such an amazing place now. I think we're institutionalized. We're here to stay for a long, long time. But that notion of when people are competing, well, what happens if only two people can get a piece of the cake and everybody else gets crumbs? What does that do for morale, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's a discussion worth having. And the other one is, how do we move people off a system of silos, right? Like, the culture here should be that every single person should be able to experience their potential.
I think it starts with leadership.
Right.
Leadership has to drive that message across the entire campus. I'm a firm believer that it takes the entire institution to build student success, from the president down to the janitors. An example of that, as a student, if I go into the restrooms and every time I go into the restroom, there are inadequate supplies, the restroom is dirty, I may not want to come back to your institution because I mean, it may seem minute, but I'm paying my tuition. I'm spending a substantial amount of my time on campus to improve upon myself, and I can't even get toilet paper or hand sanitizer, soap. So those little minute things do count.
Right.
But I think it starts with leadership. You just have to tell people, hey, recently there was the Student Success Conference. I don't know if you had a chance to attend, but the Associate Vice Chancellor of Student Affairs, Dr. Ganther, was very candid about our job. I don't think anybody goes into higher education wanting to become rich.
Right.
There's other ways that you can become rich, but everybody wants to be compensated. I mean, there's no hidden. Everybody wants to get compensated. But she says something that stuck with me. And when you get into this type of field, is because you have it's like a vocation. You want to help people
Right.
improve upon themselves.
Right.
And she said, if you're not here for that, she will personally help them get their resume together, show them how to give them interviewing tips so they can go in a different direction. But a lot of times we have people that, like you said, we're not able to realize their full potential because we're not cultivating that culture here to allow people to grow. We have programs like creative pathways and things like that have helped people. I myself I did one of those, but it's still not enough to get to cultivate that, to get the best out of your employees.
Yeah. So let me explore that statement a little.
Right.
Okay. So you said it starts with leadership, right? And now you're saying the vice chancellor, who's the third in command, I guess, says to somebody, if you want to be compensated for your skills, and if you have if you have, like, for faculty, a lot of us have multiple terminal degrees, a master's, a doctorate. We spend 10 years of our lives studying, $100,000 in tuition to be qualified. And then if you say to somebody, well, I'd like to be compensated for that, and they say, well, I'll show you the door. I mean, how does that build morale?
No,
Am I not hearing that right?
No, what she was saying is for those individuals that are here, but they don't really have the best interest in the students.
Yeah.
For those individuals, because we have individuals that are on campus.
And keep in mind, she is the third largest salary in the district.
Correct.
Okay.
Across the district. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Where, they just not here. Like I mentioned earlier, one of my biggest adjustments is trying to adapt to these silos. I don't claim to know everything because I don't know everything. But if I don't know something, it's an opportunity for me to learn. Okay, let me see who I can call to help you out. But a lot of times we don't know, and we just send students on a wild goose chase, and it's like that's fruitless. We want to try to avoid having to send the students around. That's my biggest pet peeve. I want to try to help you the best I can. If I don't know, I don't know, but this is where you can go.
Yeah.
But we just need to have individuals that truly care about helping students.
Yeah. I mean, that's why people get master's degrees and doctorate degrees, and the resilience to stick that out. People make conscious decisions. I mean, some people come from privilege and those tuitions are paid for up front. Most of us don't, we got to work second jobs or take a small loan or, I think I'm with you. Well, I've never met a bad teacher, right? I think that anybody that works here has what you're talking about. They have that motivation to be altruistic in many ways, and they don't care. Like, we don't, it's not our motivation is the paycheck. Our motivation is to be a part of a community that builds a better society, right?
Right.
Like, I'm at a station in life now where I'm done achieving for me my whole life now. I take such pleasure and get my self-esteem from helping other people, helping students. And even if you have that mindset, it's still, it's rough work, man, higher ed.
Yeah.
There's so, as you say, there's so many of these silos and moving parts, and that's why we promote teamwork. We have a great team of people, right? And we try to work off of each other's strengths and move things forward. I mean, I know I have my limits in areas, but I have so many amazing people around me that have those talents. And I would like to see that happen more across, because I'm a little surprised to hear that. I wasn't expecting to go down uh, this path with you today, but it is concerning, to me that there still exists that sort of culture. What do you think drives that? The
The
silo.
silos,
Yeah,
I there could be a myriad of reasons why these silos exist. I think part of it could be that the individuals that are operating in silos, they haven't been given the opportunity to work
yeah,
in a team environment. What I often find too with the silos is that individuals or departments, everybody wants to, they don't want to share. Everybody wants to be like, this is my area.
yeah.
And you can provide
So
maybe
it's
some
fear
yeah,
based.
some of it is fear based. Some of it is, I mean, I think they're just afraid to share.
Yeah,
Like I may come up with some, because sometimes you have to be open to other ideas.
right.
I might do something one way because that's my way, but somebody can come from the outside with a clear lens and say, "Hey, you know what? I've been watching the way you guys do business. Have you considered this and that?" And it's just being open to new ideas. And I think sometimes we resent,
Yeah,
especially if it's coming from somebody on the outside, and you're like,
yeah.
people put up their guards, and as a result,
That I agree with you. That's all about leadership. That's all about creating a culture where people feel comfortable. If I know I've experienced that while we were building this place. If you let go of an inch, somebody's going to take a mile.
right.
And again, it comes back to that reset of why we're all here is to make students successful
Mhm.
in their goal, right, from beginning to end. I think it'd be cool to have more academies or workshops around that create trust, because that's what I'm hearing
Yeah,
is that people don't trust each other. They don't trust the institution. Whatever little bit they have, they want to make sure they have that, because we have to live in the real
well,
world. We have bills to pay, and
right.
kids and
Kid,
grandkids and family and all of that. And so people don't want to jeopardize those things, right? But that's a culture that needs to be, there needs to be some way to break that cycle,
right.
right? And get to what you're talking about, is where people can rethink things or be open to different things. Tradition is a hard thing.
Yeah,
Tradition is a very, very tough thing. That's the way we've always done it,
yeah,
right? Or we do things that we think that work. But with COVID and enrollment being down, I've heard, as of today, I heard between 15 and 30%. That's no longer sustainable. Right? There has to be something done.
right,
I think you're absolutely right. It starts with you guys are the academic advisors over there, right?
right.
Do you feel like you have a clear picture of pathways of what a student wants, how to get them their academic needs met, and get? I think 48% of our student population are transfer
Yeah,
students,
that transfer
right?
students.
Do you feel like your folks, people over there, have that clear picture of how to get the 2-3 year vision for a student?
Yeah, yeah, I would say that most of the advisors, they get it. They have a clear picture of how to get a student from point A to point B. I just think that, like I said, there's so many barriers that our students face that we just need to try to break down those barriers so they can be more successful. Now, you brought up COVID. I don't know what the data is out here, as far as with the students. I know that in some of the projects that I'm working on the campus, I see the decline. We've done outreach. Our department has been doing a lot of outreach through like Dropout Detective, Red, Ears,
You're,
and you try to reach out to students. Some of them, they don't respond back. You call them. You're trying to see how you can better assist them. And my question is, what are we doing as an institution to provide or expand on the services. Like I look online and I know we have our virtual tutoring, and I think it's from 7, we close at 7 p.m. But we also have to be cognizant that a lot of our students are got kids. Some of these kids are now working from home, so they have to share resources. So then they don't have a chance to get on to like after they're taking care of their kids. So if the tutoring closes at 7, when do they get a chance if they don't have time during the day? That's an example. I'm not
No,
saying,
that's what we need to hear. That's
you
what our
know,
listeners need to hear is a very practical example of
yeah,
what you're talking about.
I don't know if they're, I'm pretty sure they're keeping track of how many students are, which I'm sure they are, that are soliciting tutoring services. What are the subjects that are most sought out for, what they need assistance with? Even with instructors, our instructors being more flexible, given that we're in this online world. I mean, it's threw everybody by a curve. I also think that it also, because there's this need or this notion that everybody wants to do everything online, but this COVID has proven that people still want that social interaction. And that's what I'm getting from some of the students, the ones that I've come in contact with, that they do miss, some of the referrals. Like, I'm struggling. This online stuff is just difficult.
It's really difficult. Almost to a student in my online courses want to be here at the school.
Yeah.
And I can tell you from the faculty perspective, like at first I thought, oh, this online's pretty cool, because
Mhm.
we had to I had to rethink my curriculum and create modules. The problem is, as you say, our students have so many barriers, right? And they're trying to survive. They're losing their jobs. It's the demographic that we traditionally serve, right? And now I have students that are just disappearing. If I was in the classroom with them, I would know them. I'd have this connection with them. I'd do whatever it takes to get them to complete the
Of course.
course. I could talk with them and spend more time with them. And with an online environment, if people don't show up,
Yeah, it's tough.
how
Yeah.
do you? And then I hear, there are people that are having really a lot of success online, right?
Mhm.
They're experts in teaching online, and they have modules that work. And so I think it's been a real learning experience for all of us.
Right.
I just hope that we don't lose too many of our students. You know how it is. Like, you start missing a class, and then you miss a semester, and then life happens, and then all of a sudden it's not a priority. And students nowadays have a lot more options, especially if it's online. They
Yeah.
could go to Rio Salado, they can
Right.
go to ASU. They have so many more
Options.
options. Yeah.
I'm curious to see what the data will demonstrate as far as the online classes. Which ones are more successful? Your traditional online or the live online?
Yeah.
Because at least with the live online, there's a set time that you got to get on, and you
Yeah.
you have that at least face to face with the instructor. I'm just kind of curious to see what the data will show, or if they're tracking that to see, and maybe we have to, depending on the success rate, maybe have to change the way
Yeah.
we do business. Maybe we do more live online versus
I think the way you correct the online thing is 8 weeks semester,
yeah,
because I had full classes for 10 weeks, and then it was just a reduction. Because again, you're asking people to come sit in front of a computer for an hour and 15 minutes twice a week saying the same thing,
right,
right? Or, the stuff from face to face is still the same. You have because I really focus on global learners.
right,
Those are people that kind of get attracted to the new media lab, very creative, possibly introverted, culturally not aggressive.
mhm,
And so, online you can run into the same thing where you have the same 3 or 4 people that dominate,
right,
so you have to make provisions. It's a whole profession, I think.
right.
The expertise and experience. And I'm a firm believer that we learn as much from our mistakes as we do for our successes. So I'm keeping notes, and but I know other faculty are having similar experiences where all of a sudden students, 6, 7 students, just stop
Showing up.
showing up, and you don't know. You can send them an email, you can do an announcement, but we need that. We need that personal contact, I think, to operate the way we were designed to operate. And online, we can't do 16-week online courses. If we're going to go online, they have to be 8 weeks.
Well, I'm glad you brought up the 8 week course schedule. I've been asking myself this question for quite some time. Like I said, I'm on the student affairs side, so I don't claim to be no expert on the academic side, but I'm sure that we can make some changes. I know there are other schools across the nation that have made changes
Yep.
in how they deliver the classes. And I'm not saying that all of them have to be 8 weeks, but for those courses that can be offered in 8 week increment, why not look at that? I'm gonna
Yeah.
use English as an example, and I don't know.
It's the perfect
Y-
scenario.
So
8 or 10 weeks.
8 or
But
10
right,
weeks,
yeah,
but let's say
right.
you do English 101 in 8 weeks. Not only would that help with retention and your success rate, because now a student can get English 101 and 102 done in one semester.
That's right.
Maybe you have it as a cohort. You have it with that one instructor, and they work on little mini assignments in English 101. Maybe they write a persuasive essay on a particular topic, compare and contrast, whatever, and then it leads to a major paper. And then you continue with that same instructor and do English 102. We just have to be creative, but that would get students, like, you know what, I want to go to college. I can get this done.
That's right.
The eye opening for me was when I was in grad school, when I was at ASU working on my master's degree, and I started the program. I was in the last group of students who had 16-week courses that first semester that I was in. And Dr. Ewan was in charge of that program, you're familiar with.
Oh yeah,
And she
Chris.
changed the curriculum to 8 weeks. So starting in this following spring, all my classes were 8 weeks. But you know what it did? It kept me on my toes because you didn't have time to procrastinate. You had to stay focused. And it didn't compromise the learning. I'm
That's
telling
right.
you, I work Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, and one day a week I'm there for 3 hours. And she and the other faculty, they kept us engaged. We learned, and we stayed on top of stuff. Because there's also some responsibility student. As a
That's right.
student, that if you come into school, you have certain responsibilities. It's not just having fun. You have to do some work.
Yeah.
There's going to be some challenges, but I think that that's one way that we can increase student numbers and also retention if you start offering in smaller chunks.
Yeah. And I called, left a message for Dr. Chris Ewing this morning. I wanted to, now that the war is over, between the dissertation and all that, I just wanted to reach out to her and thank her because she really enriched my life as a scholar and a writer for sure. And I really appreciate everything she did for me. But when you're going through it, it's tough,
Yeah.
but she's amazing. Teacher. She's retired.
Yeah, she's retired. I saw that.
Headed back east. I wish we could have snapped her up over here. I was up there at UC Davis for a minute teaching, and they call it the quarter system, but it's really like a tri-semester system over when you look at the yearly calendar. It's 10 weeks, I think, 10-week, 12-week quarters. So as you say, in a 16-week quarter, a semester, they can fit in two classes, English 101 and 102. And they usually bridge other curriculum that can count as two if you have faculty who have the qualifications, right? So I would teach English 101, 102, but it was married to American Indian Studies, right? So they got one class, two different ways of crediting that class.
Right.
That's because they're able to modernize and evolve their thinking, and they're not stuck in many ways that Maricopa is with the legislation downtown because of where the tax revenues that we bring an accountability with them. And so we've been stuck. Our schedule, I think, in many ways, is still connected to the farming culture, right?
Right.
I mean, we get summers off.
Yeah.
You get these long winter breaks. You get spring breaks to help plant and harvest. Our students aren't really coming from the farms anymore, right? I mean, there's all the farms are shopping malls now. So I really appreciate you bringing this up about student success. And I hope our listeners will listen to Luis and what he is talking about today, his observations as he's doing his doctoral work. He's really starting to broaden his thinking about how we can best achieve the student success goal. right?
Right.
And one of these is time. So you also brought up an interesting point too. Like if we were to shorten the semester, let's say 10 weeks, right? So for the faculty, because you can burn faculty out. You have to learn how to cycle faculty in and out. And I think this has larger implications too, that faculty could be moving, or staff could be moving in and out of more leadership roles on off semesters that maybe they're not teaching,
Right.
right? Because if you start having a faculty start over every 8 weeks, it's going to be a few years. You're going to get people burn out, right? So we have to either lighten the load or make provisions for that kind of thing. But you're also now talking about it's hard to find that one size fits all model, right?
Right.
And that's where we have to get better at learning that, because as you brought up a good point, if people have jobs and they have children and maybe they're they're going to school full time, and maybe their spouse is, you know, a compression of 8 weeks is a lot because you have to really be focused, right? So what do you think about, let's look at the other side of that, the demand of 8 to 10 week quarters. How do you think that will impact students?
Um, I mean, you can at first I wouldn't just jump in and say do all the classes 8 weeks. Maybe you try out a couple and you do surveys. You got to survey the students to see what their experience was like, because then based on their experience and their success rates, then you have data to then say, okay, this is working or it's not working. Um, Maybe in now we're using multiple measures to place students in classes. Maybe in the different multiple measures you have a benchmark that says if you get a certain score or a certain GPA, you may be eligible to take an accelerated English 101. You may have tested into English 101, but if you get this particular score, you're eligible to do an accelerated English 101 because we feel that you can meet the rigors.
I think we have that.
Yeah, we have that, but
Yeah.
right now it's just But I'm just saying for the accelerated
Right.
option, if that was something that the school or the district were to consider, that's one way to kind of start. You start out slowly. You don't.
Yeah.
But I think also by having that flexible schedule, it gives faculty time to truly engage with students more.
Yeah.
Some of your office hours, you can really help students. I mean, I don't know what it's like in the tutoring center, but it will be nice to see some faculty members in there as well, helping out the students or in their office, whatever is comfortable. But
Yeah.
I want to see more of that interaction with students and faculty, and students being available to help. I mean, faculty being available to help their students be successful
Yeah.
in these courses.
Well, I'm glad you brought up faculty offices, because there's also talk about getting rid of faculty offices if we're online. What do the faculty need to be here on campus, right? So you got to watch these bureaucrats as the pendulum swings too far one way or too far the other way, of like being, I'm definitely a centrist. I think that these models have to be carefully, but there's plenty of, like I say, UC, the UC system is already on this system, and they're doing very, very well.
I think one of the things that drives me crazy about Maricopa is that we've had a plethora of institutions, scholars who have come and presented here about the innovative things that they're doing at their institution. They have garnered so many awards. They have the data to prove it. And it's just like we go to the Student Success Conference every year, and they bring some years they bring some good speakers, others not so great. But overall, we've had some great scholars come and share their knowledge with us. And I feel like, when you're at the conference, you're all psyched up. You go back,
Right.
maybe the first couple weeks, oh man, people can't stop talking about that particular scholar or innovative idea. And then you don't hear about it. Nobody
Yeah.
jumps on it. We've had a Valencia Community College, one of the top community colleges in the nation. We have people from Alamo. I mean, we had people from all over, and we just stay stuck and that's the most frustrating thing, and nobody wants to make a move. We have to get
Yeah.
permission from
That's not the way we do it, right?
yeah.
Well, I mean, you say that, and I'm currently doing like international speaking at universities about how to build these new media labs.
Yeah.
And it's hard for me to keep this thing going.
But see, this is a creative way. I mean, when you came up with this concept, I was like, and you start to. I remember you told me, "Hey, can you start telling your students about it?"
Yeah.
Students are like, "What?" Like, I get to. You still write English. You still have to write your
Yeah.
papers. You still have to dot your I's, cross your T's. But now I'm writing. But now I'm gonna give it life
Yeah.
by creating a video, and voiceover. That's creative.
Yeah.
I think we need to faculty, staff, we need to be motivated every time you come to work. Students they should be dying to come into your class every time they come into your class. Now there's a faculty member on this campus. I'm not going to say his name.
Don't.
No,
Don't
no,
do
no,
it.
no,
Don't do it.
no, no, no. I'm not going to say his name, but we're good friends.
Yeah.
And I remember one semester he allowed me to. He always allows me to go to his class to kind of like hear
Yeah.
things out. But it was an evening class, and some of those evening classes are long. But I know instructors sometimes would make deals with his students. Okay,
Yeah.
if we don't take any breaks,
Yeah.
we can cut out a little early. But the material was so interesting to me, and I'm not.
Yeah.
That I'm like, why are we leaving early? I want to be here. But he keeps the students engaged. Now, another thing too, everybody has cell phones. And I know that in the classroom, if I'm an instructor, I don't want students to be on their phone while I'm lecturing. I think is a form of disrespect. But another way to engage your students, and this particular instructor does this from time to time, pull out your phones. Look so-and-so up.
Yeah.
So it keeps them engaged in the learning using something that they all familiar with, something that they like. I'm not saying that everybody has to do that, but we have to find
That's right.
innovative ways. Now our campus, our student demographic is becoming more and more diverse.
Right.
But the instructors are not becoming diverse. In that same student success conference, one of the keynote speakers, Dr. Harris from San Diego State University, talked about being intrusive as a faculty member. He talked about a subject like math. You can present to those diverse students mathematicians that look like them to get them motivated.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times our educational system is seen through a Eurocentric lens, and we don't bring in other players. My aha moment, and I consider myself someone that tries to keep on top of things, was when that movie Hidden Figures came out. Here I am, an educator, I have a master's degree, and I have never heard of Hidden Figures, never heard of these women. And granted, although I grew up in Panama and I went to the Panamanian school system, I also went to the American school system. I graduated from the Department of Defense school, so from 7th grade to 12th grade, I was in an American school system. So it's not like it was something foreign to me, but I never heard of these women. And they played a key role in something that was so astonishing for our country. Well, those are the kind of things that our curriculum needs to change too, where we need to add some diversity, and that also to galvanize not only the students that are of color, but also to let the white peers know that, hey, we all contribute to this great nation. It's not just one lens. And those are how you can break up some of those silos and some of the tension that's going on in the country right now.
Right.
Is by educating, but it starts in the classroom.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking my language, man. And I want our listeners to know that Luis has been a very strong advocate and partner for the New Media Lab work since day one. Yourself and Alvin Bridges. Without Alvin, he just once he realized the potential that we had, he made it happen for us. Because we were just grabbing old computers and we were just doing the best that we can, and all of a sudden I have an amazing chair that I work for. I had a great dean at that time. Like once people do line up and get rid of the silos and get behind a good idea, it's a great thing.
Right.
We know we can do that. But the things that you're talking about, these institutional practices, it's time. And
Right.
I think our leaders recognize that, and it's time to modernize curriculum. Yeah, I'm just really inspired, by the work that you're doing, and I hope that you keep raising these issues across campus, because the 4 or 5 faculty that do it, we've talked about it, because then they are, oh, here they come,
Yeah.
It's like we get tired of carrying that flag, and there has to be this sense of what I focused my work on was inherent tribal sovereignty. And I just work with my tribe, the tribe that I'm enrolled in, to do the work that I was doing because I don't need validation from Maricopa to be a tribal member.
Right.
But it's not even registers with me anymore. But what we needed to do was to have a place where, like you say, we've produced so much diverse work from all populations, man. African American, Hawaiian, Eurocentric. I mean, I can't tell you how many great stories that we've produced out of here about the Mormon community here.
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea about that community really. We've had just a series of that, and I think people are really hungry, for that kind of work, And when you're talking about how that ties into enthusiasm and encouraging students to want to be here and want to complete, and they can see themselves in the projects,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't get better than that.
Yeah.
And I was talking to a colleague of mine earlier today about some of the things that we get stuck in at Mesa is just the diagnosis.
Mm-hmm.
So we all kind of know the diagnosis, but what about the treatment and what about, moving into a new age? Do you have a sense that we're heading in that direction?
I want to hope that we're going in that direction. I mean, I know there's rumblings on around the college about making these changes.
Yeah.
I don't know when they're gonna make these changes, but I think it's long overdue. And I want to go back to that when I mentioned earlier about the associate vice chancellor. If you don't want to be here, if you don't want to really affect change, then you might want to reconsider if this is a place you want to be.
Yeah.
I think that the days of trying to like pacify individuals, I think those days are just should be long gone.
Yeah.
And the way you do it is by showing them the data. These are what other institutions are doing. These are things that we can do. And let's go ahead and do it.
Yeah.
Poll your students, see what is it that they want. We can make education fun and innovative without compromising the standards.
That's right.
The course objectives.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys are the experts. It's just how you deliver it. That might be an individual case, but we have to make it fun. We have to make it where students want to be on our classrooms. I also think that one of the, and we are complicit, and I understand that, community college, we're open access. And I'm all for that because hence the word community. We're here to serve the community. When I was a recruiter, I used to tell students, as long as you have a pulse, we're going to take you. We're going to build you where you are. And we have these assessment tests for you to take. I mean, now we have multiple measures, but wherever you are, you're welcome, and we're going to build you up. That's the beauty of community college. We have a lot
That's
of
right.
those stories from students that came from nothing, and now they built themselves up. They didn't see themselves going to college. They probably had a bad experience in high school, but they took that leap of faith, came to the community college, and it was like the Pandora box just opened up.
That's right.
That being said, I still think that we need to set certain standards, and standards in that, as an advisor, we're always struggling for numbers. As a district, we're always struggling for numbers, but we don't put anything in place to make sure that we keep those numbers. And one of the changes that I would like to see is that as we nearing enrollment, that you set some hard deadlines. ASU is never hurting for numbers. And this became really apparent to me when I went over to the district on a creative pathway. And I remember I'd met with he was a non-traditional student. We had everything laid out for him. Hey, when you get done this semester, you need to contact so-and-so. Everything was laid out. I know part of it was that apprehension. Oh my God, I'm going to ASU. So he literally waited for when I came back. And then here we are in the summertime, and he's trying to get into ASU. We called the person that I put him in contact with, and the person put a supervisor on the phone. The supervisor said, well, you can try, but I can't guarantee that you could get in because we have deadlines. And I know at the beginning, it may hurt enrollment, but once the word gets out that, hey, if you want to go to Maricopa colleges, you also have to have deadlines. I think that by not doing that, we cheapen the value of our product because we're so concerned about numbers. How about the numbers that you have here? Let's take care of those numbers.
Yeah.
I remember telling Dr. Pan, I can sell popsicle to a penguin, you know, but it doesn't do any good for me to sell them that. And when they get here, we don't take care of the student.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why I was happy when I had the opportunity to transition back to advising, because I get to see, I really get to enjoy that journey with the student. As a recruiter, yes, I help them in, they get here, but then after I hand them to the college, it's up to them to make those connections
Yeah.
and hopefully that they stay engaged.
Well, in many ways, you're talking about decisive leadership
Mm-hmm.
with the deadline
Yeah.
and stuff. So we're not kind of wishy-washy about it. And then you're right. I love that thinking, that kind of model cheapens our value.
Yeah.
And I think that we can become a little, I don't know what the word is, codependent or whatever, right? We can become so overly concerned with some of these things that we forget that that our young people, they kind of like standards, right? A lot of, as faculty, it's pretty clear that you are dealing with a demographic that need parenting in some ways, right? Like I quickly learned after teaching at the university for several years and then coming here that my job was to teach students how to be students, habits of what a student is, when to schedule, time management, and like you have to set aside 2 hours every other day or so for a class that's your sole purpose is to focus on your studies. You can't. It isn't a high school. I think I was talking to a colleague about that this morning, that we would kind of be stuck in a bit of a high school model mentality, and that elevating our standards of what we expect from both our faculty and our students, right, and our institution could be a good thing. But then again, you have to watch that pendulum so it doesn't get into being harsh.
Right.
You want to keep the edges nice and soft to allow, and that's the beautiful thing about, like you say, we bring in scholars. This is the wonderful thing about science, is to be able to study all of these scenarios, right? And there's a solution for all of them. The one size fit all model, it may work for a particular demographic, but not necessarily for us.
Right.
Right. And to use all the talent, man, dude, do you know how much talent we have at Mesa Community College?
There's plenty.
It is scary how much talent we have here. But I don't know how we, centralize that talent in a way that rethinks the entire institution, because even I've worked for all the presidents. Every one of them have asked me to lead some projects for him. Dr. Haney would tell me that, he would have a meeting, his cabinet meeting, and they would be talking about administration stuff. And then like, okay, we're going to talk about student services. We got a meeting in an hour or half an hour across the hall. And he said, with the same people would just get up and walk into the next room and sit down and be the same people.
Right.
Right. And there was no and so that's why he started these different senates and things like that to give more voice. I don't know how that's working out because I'm not involved with that stuff anymore. But I hope that it is allowing people, who normally are not at the table to be at the table, to have ideas, to have a common vision. We need that sort of stuff because our students certainly deserve that.
Right.
And like I say, I'm not involved with those kinds of things these days because my sole focus is the lab here now. And I hope that that's happening, that these different committees are just not creating more bureaucracy. Right. We're getting less done than more. I don't have a pulse on that at all, Let me ask you one last thing here. Boy, we've really covered some ground in this podcast. Man, I'm so glad you brought up these issues. We're going to probably ruffle a few folks out there.
That's okay.
Maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe everybody's out there nodding their head,
Yeah. Well, I'm here to not cause the ruckus, but to interrupt some of the stuff. Like I said,
well, you're doing a good job.
I've had time to sit down. I mean, these are not new ideas. These are things that I've shared with in smaller groups, some meetings, whatever. But having the time to be at home, working from home in my classes, it just like I keep telling people, 2020 is a year of vision. I compare it to vision, your vision 2020, and it's at least opened my eyes to a lot of things. And one of them, like if we cannot continue doing the same thing that we're doing and expect to get
That's right.
different results.
That's
We,
exactly
we
right.
we have to change the way we do things. There are other schools out there that are doing great things. Let's extrapolate the good things that they're doing and incorporate into the way we do business.
Well, as you can see, universities are actually starting to offer degrees called disruptive leadership. You know that?
I didn't know that.
There's like special areas. Uh, were you a part of? We brought the lady over from Pasadena. She was an East Indian woman, wrote a book. I think it was
Yes.
called Disruptive
Yeah.
Learning or something.
Yeah.
You know?
Dr. Sharma. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And she did a wonderful job. We brought Bill Gates's people down here
Yeah.
that were trying to help us with scheduling. It's like you say, we have all of this amazing body of work around us, and then we hear it, we get excited about it, and then we just go back to doing what we were doing, and no change really happens. I want to ask you this here. We have a few minutes to go. Could you tell our listeners, and I've asked several people this during our podcast, let's forget about money for a minute. Let's forget about politics. Let's forget about silos and all of that. Tell me the one thing that you would like to see manifest here at Mesa Community College that would benefit student success and the people who work in that field. What's the biggest grandiose thing you can think of?
I would have to say, genuinely working collaboratively to help the students. All hands on deck. Um, Whether you're the president, or like I said, all hands on deck, and that we generally want to help people. And I'm not saying that we don't help. I think for the most part, people do help. But there's been times I see students, from a distance, you see them they look lost, and they might be a staff member nearby that could render some help, and you just let the student walk by you, and you can see that they need help. They're looking around like
Yeah.
bewildered. What do I do? So I think if we could just come together and genuinely let's work together to help students be successful. We learn our areas of expertise. Whatever I don't know, I'm going to point you in the right direction, but let's help students be successful.
Thank you, man. Eddie Webb, we are here at the New Media Lab with soon to be Dr. Luis Ellis, who has, challenged us today with some amazing ideas. And I don't think you can contextualize this other than a disruptive leadership kind of conversation, you know? And like I say, universities and colleges are now offering degrees in disruptive innovation. And I love that idea that this year was about rethinking and reimagining. Let's hope that we can all come together. And I think it's small steps, kind of like eating the elephant, one bite at a time. But there are some bigger chunks that we could take to move this institution forward. I love Mesa Community College. And even when we talk about the diagnosis of things that we would like to see better, the bottom line, there are so many talented people at Mesa Community College, people like yourself, people like our team. And we've actually been doing some stuff out in the private sector on behalf of the college. And it's been amazing how those folks, real business leaders that look at the work that we're doing here at Mesa and just go, wow, that's impressive work.
Yeah.
So we know we have the talent. Students, we're wishing you all the best. Please be safe. In my dad's language, they say, We'll see you again. And everybody remember, take care of each other out there. We'll see you soon.